So it's been a few patches and I thought why not share with you guys my updated best Cypher camera spots and setups for each map. I have used a bunch of these setups in my games in Immortal 3, so these are what have been working for me in high elo ranked. Really, not much has changed over the last couple patches. They're mostly just adjustments to common camera positions and tripwire spots. So first up, we are going to be here on Ascent, and last time I showed A site, so this time I'll show you my favorite setup for B site. And first up, we're going to be starting off with our camera spots, and by far the best camera spot is on top of the sign just like this. This is the safest camera spot. It almost never gets shot out. Plus, it can give you great information if your team needs to retake the site, as you'll be able to see if someone is pushing towards your spawn. You'll be able to see if anyone is pushing lane or hiding in the cubby here under market. I do think that is the best spot, but another good spot I really like is between these two windows, just like this. You can see the enemies walking into B main before they can see your camera, but a lot of people know about this spot now, so this camera will often get shot out, which is why I typically will default to the camera on top of the sign. If you want early information for B site, you can throw your camera between the bars of the window right here just by jumping and placing it. This gives you a great early view into B main. Obviously, if the attackers are there, the camera is going to get destroyed, but you are basically sacrificing your camera for the information that the attackers are there. That's not something I do too often. It's mostly if the attackers have been playing very aggressive quickly towards B site. So my one-way cage lineups are still the same. I genuinely think they are the easiest to throw for this site. And all you want to do is stand at this line in the wall along the bricks here. And you can tell it's the right line because it's in the middle of this doorway to market. So right here along the wall, if you want to one-way the right side of the archway, aim your crosshair at this corner of the sign just like this and throw your cage. Will land perfectly on top of the right archway. And if you want to throw in for the left side, just aim at this brown spot along the wall right here above the arch, just like this. Throw your cage, and it will land perfectly on the left side. So just throw down whichever cage you want, depending on which side you're going to be playing on. Here's what the left cage looks like, which is great if you're playing really far behind the wall here on ramp, or if you're playing back here in CT, it also works well for this area. And for the right side, it works great if you're playing in the market doorway here, or if you're playing back here on lane. So like I said, there's a couple of tripwire adjustments for B site that I really like. The first one is right here along the ground, and if you aim it just to the left of the boathouse, you can actually clip it through the wall to connect it to the boat as well. So someone will hit this if they're just running down lane to site, but this is great because it saves you a tripwire because it also covers if somebody is running to the switch here to close the door. Plus, if somebody hits the tripwire going to the switch and you are playing on site, you can get an easy wallbang through the wall. The other spot I really like is aiming it so it's connected to the boat, basically anywhere along this part of the wall. So you can place it low like this, make it really hard to notice, or you can place it a little bit higher. Really, it doesn't matter too much, as nobody is going to be running onto site, clearing it like this, and jumping over these wires. Other than that, this tripwire still works pretty well. This tripwire spot isn't really for B site specifically, but if you're playing B site, you might want to help your team mid, and placing a tripwire along the wall like this can be super useful in knowing that the enemies have made a push pretty far up market here and are either going to be in your spawn or pushing market to B site. So the best Cypher setup for Ascent looks something like this.
Cage triggered.
So moving on to split, and B site is still Cypher's strongest site on this map. First, for camera spots, the one on top of the wall here is still the best one that you should always start off with. You can see anyone pushing into heaven. You can also see if anyone is walking into B main, and you can see their feet and legs before they can see this camera. So this is a pretty common spot, so I definitely recommend you change up its exact position every time. That way the enemy doesn't just slowly walk up and pre-fire your camera even if you're not in it. If that spot keeps getting broken out, what you can do is place your camera basically anywhere along the front of this pillar. As long as it's high up, it won't get broken out really. Plus, it will still allow you to see if anybody pushes out of B main or pushes into heaven. Obviously, it's not as good because it really doesn't cover the site, so that really is just a fallback if you need it. So moving on to one-way cages, once again, we have the one for B main here, standing in this corner, aiming along this light brown trim, just like this. Basically anywhere along here works fine. Throw your cage up, and it will bounce off the roof and on top of the door. This is one of the strongest one-ways in the whole game for Cypher because you can play anywhere along site here and have a one-way to be main. So finally for tripwire spots, and I found that you actually don't need both tripwires on site hardly ever. It's almost always better to place one in B heaven here for your teammates. The reason for that is your teammates can then give up B heaven and play off of your tripwire. They can play behind this box and peek if they hit a tripwire in the doorway, for example, or if you place a tripwire on the box, they can play back here and peek when they hit that. So the spots that I really like for heaven are right here, right at the top of the stairs. Also like placing one along the corner like this. That way it covers this whole side of B heaven. But you can also do something more simple like this along the box and this wall. And both of these are great for if a teammate has to play back further in heaven, like around the staircase here like this. But they also work really well if you or a teammate is playing on rafters and you need to peek like this. Something along the drop here can be really good as well. So if you're playing down here, someone hits the wire, you peek them, it's a free kill. I actually also really like this spot here along the pillar because it's a super unexpected spot and it's super annoying to have to deal with. And if you're playing something like this on site, it's a super easy kill if they hit it. It's also really safe to play off of from back here, peek rafters, and fall back. So along the trash can works well if they don't have a raise or a sova. But if they do have a raise or a sova, I'm almost always placing a tripwire like this instead. So anybody walking up to the site will hit it. You can also place one along this stall right here, which will catch anyone running straight to back site. So my best Cypher setup for split looks something like this.
Cage triggered.
So moving on to bind, and here on B site, I'm going to be showing you guys some new tripwire spots that I really like that have worked really well in my high immortal rank games. So first up, for the cameras, we have a pretty situational one, but it can definitely be useful here in hookah. And all you want to do is aim just along this box right here, and you can place your camera inside the pillow. So you can see right through the pillow, you'll be able to see anyone entering into hookah, and you would really only be using this camera if you and your teammate are taking long control or playing in garden. The camera's pretty hard to notice, so as long as the enemies don't hear you enter into the camera, it should get some pretty good information. My favorite spot for B site though is basically anywhere along this wall in the corner, as it allows you to peek into hookah and along, plus it gives you great info if the enemies are pushing onto site. And if it is getting shot out, you can do something like placing it above the archway over here. This way the camera will survive and you'll be able to have a lot of information for a retake. Or you can do something similar over here along this wall. You can use it to see a little bit into hookah, but you'll also be able to see anyone who's pushing onto site or making a more aggressive push into elbow or CT. So yeah, great overall information of the site, but definitely more defensive. For early info at long, what you can do is place your camera right along the corner just like this. And if you turn your camera fully to the left, you can actually see long B. So you'll be able to see anyone walking up long. And when most people are checking long, they're checking for this camera up here, and they aren't searching for a camera at this spot because it's not very well known. Plus, it's sort of hard to notice behind the wooden post at the top of the building. You can also turn it all the way to the right to be able to see the entire site as well. So great for early info and retake information if you need it. So moving on to the one-way cage, there's actually a pretty interesting one here for long. The only downside is you have to throw it as the round is starting, and if you mess it up, you only get one chance. It's a pretty difficult lineup, so I definitely recommend you practice it before going into a real game. Basically, all you want to do is stand in this corner right here, aim right in the middle of these decorative tiles right at the top, just like this, and move your crosshair straight up until it's in line with the corner of the roof right here. So like this. And it should land on top of this electrical box. Like I said, you have to be pretty pixel perfect, but once you get it, it's definitely replicatable. And this is a great one-way for if you're playing back in cubby here, you'll be able to see anyone pushing up. Plus, this can be a great spot if you're playing on top of the tube here, on top of this box. You can see, once again, anyone pushing up long. So moving on to tripwire spots, first we have the classic right here from the sand. This one still works really well at catching the enemies off guard. You can place a tripwire more on site right here. This way it blocks off the left side of the site and the default plant spot. You can also place one on this side of the site as well to do the same thing. You can also place a tripwire right here along the tube, connecting it to the wall, which once again will cut off this right side. These tripwires are also really easy wall bangs if you're playing inside of the tube itself. But my favorite new tripwire is just to the right of the bottom of this door, and it connects to the sand. It'll connect to the sand right here. This is a tripwire spot that not a lot of people know about, and obviously nobody is going to be running onto site jumping and dodging it. So my best Cypher setup for bind looks something like this.
Cage triggered.
So finally we have Haven, and we're going to be on A site because I believe it is still Cypher's strongest site on this map. Starting off with camera spots, the one that I think is best for overall view of the site is the one right along the sign right here. You just want to stand in the window ledge, aim right at the edge of this wood post, and you have a great camera that sees all of sight, as well as a little bit of early information for when the attackers are walking up long, about to be at the bottom of the ramp. My next favorite camera for sight is right at the corner of this building right here, and to place it, you need to walk out onto the ledge of the window right here. You can aim just at this corner, and once again, you get to see all of sight. However, this time you don't get as much early information, but overall, this camera almost never gets shot out as it's so high up, plus it will be to the attackers' backs as they're taking the site. For early information, I still like the camera along the pot just like this. You can see if anyone crosses, and you'll be able to see if people are walking up long. You can also just jump and place a camera right along the corner right here, and you have a little gap to see anyone crossing through lobby, plus you'll be able to see anyone walking up along. This camera is super easy to place, and you can just throw it at the start of the round. If you see something, you can easily pull it away before it gets broken as well. So for the one-way cage, all you want to do is stand right at the edge of this box just like this. Aim right here where these two pieces of wood meet at the corner just like this. Throw your cage, and it will land perfectly at the edge of the wall. And when you pop this cage, you have a great one-way to anyone pushing up the ramp or at the bottom of the ramp. The downside to this one-way is that you have to be playing around this area over here, and that's why I don't really personally use it, but the option's there if you want it. So finally, we have tripwire spots, and just like the other maps, there's a couple of new spots that I really like that have worked really well. And the reason that I actually know about most of these is because I've seen people use them against me and they've caught me off guard. So first up, the main new one that I like is right here along the left side of default, just like this. It connects to the box right there, and it will cover this whole left side. So anyone pushing like this through sight will get caught by this wire. Another pretty good spot along the site as well is right here, just to the right of that spot. It'll connect to this box, so someone pushing up short and trying to push around site this way, or someone pushing up long and trying to push around site to check CT will get caught by this wire. Obviously, we have the standard ones as well, right over here. or somewhere over here like this. I also still use this wire sometimes as well, especially if the attackers are just breaking these tripwires every time. This is one of my favorite fallback spots. So my best Cypher setup for Haven looks like this.
Cage triggered.
So that is going to do it for my best Cypher camera spots and setups for all maps for patch 1.06. If you guys want to see more Valorant videos and guides like this, then make sure you hit that subscribe button.